Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A Windsor man on Canada's most wanted list has been arrested. We have the details. Plus, the plastics plant in Sarnia that's been shut down by government for releasing toxic emissions is saying those orders will carry significant impacts. And a grade 6 student is recalling the moment he saved his friend's life. That comes months after his teacher taught all her students the Heimlich maneuver. A Windsor man on Canada's most wanted list has been arrested. John Manigan was taken into custody in Edmonton on Monday on a charge of attempted murder. He has been wanted in connection with a local shooting that previously injured one person last summer.
We had several tips generated to investigative leads. Investigative leads led to different investigative techniques, which assisted in locating him. Mr. Manigan is being held in an Edmonton court, waiting extradition or transportation back to Windsor.
Manigan is one of two suspects in a shooting that happened on Peary Avenue just north of Erie Street last August. One suspect, Kyle Small, was found by Michigan authorities last November, but 25-year-old Manigan has evaded arrest for almost 9 months. 2 weeks ago, he joined the list of the 25 most wanted fugitives in Canada. Along with attempted murder charge, Manigan will face numerous weapons offenses. 2 firearms were found at the scene. Investigators say it's still not clear if Manigan and Smalls knew the victim, but police said the incident began with a verbal argument and that the 33-year-old victim was shot 5 to 7 times. He survived with serious injuries.
Unfortunately, the way society seems to evolve these days is we take things and we take it to the nth degree. The level of violence that we're seeing, not only in Windsor but throughout the country, it's difficult to explain why anybody at any point would think that discharging a firearm in the middle of an afternoon on a busy intersection would be an appropriate answer to a verbal argument.
The Sarnia plastic plant that was shut down by the government says there will be widespread impacts. The province shut down the operation after complaints of toxic emissions. Despite the plant no longer running, there's new safety concerns. The CBC's Chris Ensing reports.
The chemical plant across from Aamjiwnaang First Nation is shut down today and will remain offline until it meets conditions set by the province.
Have you seen the government take action like this as far as removing a permit that allows a company like this to operate in Sarnia?
I've been mayor now 35, 36 years. I've been through some really big challenges in the 80s and 90s with the industry and the province and sometimes the federal government. I've never seen this action before. It's a very clear and strong message.
The shutdown follows 2 years of complaints from Aamjiwnaang and comes after multiple people were rushed to hospital for benzene exposure. Sick, dizzy, and concerned about long-term effects, they called for the immediate shutdown of the plant, backed by the band and council, who want assurances that benzene emissions will end.
We continue to advocate for recognition at the decision-making tables because this is our home.
INEOS says they operate within prescribed limits and that none of its workers have gotten sick. Nearby provincial air monitors record toxic emissions that peak well beyond guidelines. The company says following the government order will carry significant costs and that the timeline is unrealistic. In a statement, INEOS has said engineers have raised significant concerns about safety and elevated emissions related to the shutdown order, adding there's worries about the local and national economic impact because the flow of all products into and out of the site is currently stopped, which will likely impact the refineries that produce most of Eastern Canada's gasoline. The company has not responded to multiple interview requests and have not identified the specific safety concerns they've raised with the province. Sarnia's mayor says the company needs to be more forthcoming with information.
I met with them or heard from them like 8 days after the original concerns. And it's, just the world we're in. You don't get the right anymore not to disclose, especially when you're talking about health and the environment. And so I think there was a major misstep.
Sarnia is one of Canada's oldest industrial clusters. And frankly, it still is a very dominant cluster for manufacturing in Canada and certainly in Ontario.
INEOS plays a key role in this highly integrated cluster, according to Greg Moffat with the Chemistry Industry Association of Canada. Nearby companies create benzene as a byproduct of their operations. That benzene is shipped by pipeline to INEOS. It's stored in tanks and later processed into styrene. That styrene is then used as plastic in finished products. The shutdown raises questions about what companies will do with its benzene byproduct.
When I lose my ability to move my benzene, then it starts to impact my ability to operate, right? And so I think that's really what we're talking about here is how much storage do these facilities have? And now they're storing benzene as opposed to being able to move it. And how quickly can they pivot to move the benzene that they have on site to other markets, right? So you'd be dependent on rail. Certainly in the Sarnia region, they have access to marine barge.
A spokesperson for Canadian Fuels says refineries are preparing contingency plans with no immediate risk at this time.
Materials being made there are still part of the Canadian economy. There's still things happening there that are of benefit to Canadians. But then you get into that endless debate about the environment versus the economy. And right now, I would say the mood in general terms here is on the side of health and protecting people's health.
Amgenong kept banned offices closed today out of concern for people's health and safety and says it needs to be part of any decisions made around efforts to control toxic emissions. INEOS has until the middle of the month to appeal the government's order. That could launch a public hearing into the matter. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
A teaching lesson in a grade 6 class at St. Therese French Catholic School in Windsor has just saved a life. This past Thursday, 12-year-old Zane Bassam jumped into action when his classmate Tony started choking on a piece of spaghetti. We sat down with the boys and their teacher to get the full story.
Zane was here, so I come here, I can't breathe. And one of my friends that were sitting right here were asking me if it's real. Zane, sitting right here, he said that he saw that I was drooling and my face was red, so he knew it wasn't fake. He started with 5 back blows, like he said, then he went with the Heimlich maneuver, and I started throwing up.
Right away, Zane told me to go get a teacher. I knew he wasn't joking at that point when he started going like this. I was really anxious, yeah, but I knew that I didn't want it to get any worse, so I just went straight ahead.
Felt like, you know when you're underwater deep and you can't breathe anymore? So when he was helping me, it felt like in my head I was like trying to swim up, and when he saved me, it felt like my head popped out of the water and I actually got the chance to breathe. I was thinking like, oh my God, he's really choking. Like, I wouldn't have thought this would actually happen this year, but it did. I'm really lucky that our teacher, Madame Mary, she taught us this first aid, because if she didn't, then it could have been way worse.
The way it works at our school is the grade 6s do lunchroom monitoring for the younger grades. I wanted them to be prepared. So what I did was I combined the Stay Safe program with the babysitter program, which is with the Red Cross. And they had 2 days of intensive training. And when they come into these situations, they're prepared, they're confident, they're not scared, they won't hesitate to jump in and act. It could have been obviously a lot worse. Something terrible could have happened and we might not have Tony with us today.
In case, if it ever happens again, I have both of my friends here just to save me, you know.
What did you say to each other afterwards?
So we dapped each other up, I gave him a hug, and we just went with our day.
Are you still thinking about this, or is this kind of something in the past for you?
No, I'm really still thinking about it, not gonna lie, because I'm thinking like if he didn't know what to do, I could have probably still been in the hospital because it could have done some damage to me.
Tony's one of my closest friends, and I would have felt really bad if matters had gone worse. So I was just really lucky that I was there for him at the right time. This is something that I'll always keep in my head because it's really important, and if something ever happens again, I'll be ready to save someone.
Zane has been nominated by his teacher for the Red Cross Rescuers Award. Tecumseh's popular Corn Festival is temporarily on the move. It's shifting from its usual location in Lacoste Park to McAuliffe Park this summer. That's about a 10-minute drive south down L'Esperance Road, south of the EC Row Expressway. The move was necessary due to a National Senior Men's Baseball Championship, which is happening at Lacoste Park in the same weekend in late August. Work to renovate Lacoste Park has been ongoing for the past 2 years at a price of roughly $5 million. Tecumseh's mayor says hosting the tournament is huge for the town with 10 provinces in attendance. A Windsor artist has created a spot for himself in the local rock music scene, but not for his vocals or instrumental talents. He's hired to make gig posters and flyers. In fact, he's made hundreds over the past decade.
I go by The Ugly Vision. That's my website is theuglyvision.com, and my Instagram handle is theuglyvision. I've been doing this since around 2011. And my friends were in bands. I grew up in bands in high school. Friends of mine just started asking me to do their posters, and then just word of mouth spread, and I started doing more and more. And I love the Windsor music scene. I love just music in general. I love gig posters. I've always been a visual person, and doing gig posters always kind of made the shows more special to me. I've lost count. I know I hit 300 at some point, probably like in 2019, 2018, probably somewhere between like 300 and 400 gig posters. A lot of Windsor bands, like I've done artwork for the Bluestones for years, Hutch, which is local band, classic like Canadian punk bands like DOA, SNFU, Comeback Kid, 80-90% hand drawn. Pen and paper, ink, and then I usually scan, and then it's colored digitally. Rough, crude. Again, I grew up like on punk music and comic books and B-movies and cartoons, so very much that aesthetic. I don't grasp technology and keeping the old ways of doing things. I enjoy that when it comes to art and music especially. I thought about doing digital drawing and stuff like that, but it's just I don't like seeing things go digital, because I like the idea of there being a tangible item that somebody can pull the flyer down after a show. It's a keepsake. I guess it is a dying art. You don't see it as much as you used to. It's definitely a niche art. They're fun to draw. I think people like them. Yeah, like I do enjoy doing this still, and I see no end in sight just yet. I do enjoy kind of having the free rein to draw goblins and creatures and zombies and stuff like that on posters.
Get the shades and sunscreen out tomorrow because it's going to be a warm one. First, we have some nastier weather. Colette Kennedy has your weather forecast coming up after the break. Colette, it looks like it might be a tough night for all the dogs in Windsor, Essex who aren't a big fan of thunder, which includes mine, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you got to kind of help them out with some of that anxiety, right? But we do have that risk of hearing the thunder, but having some lightning and some stronger storms coming through a little bit later on this evening. So just showing you right now where our current temperatures are. And if you're thinking, well, there were a few sprinkles out there, well, some light showers. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. And you'll see on the radar here. So as that went through, we saw the temperatures drop a little bit. So we were up to 20 degrees in Windsor. We've come down to 18. It's really what's behind this. So not these light showers you're seeing here on the radar. It's the much more active weather here that is back across western Michigan state and also through the Ohio Valley. And in fact, this cluster here, there are some tornado-warned storms in there, but as that is tracking to the northeast, it will weaken once it moves across Lake Huron and towards Georgian Bay, but still that thunderstorm activity heads in that direction. It's more this development here just to the southwest of Fort Wayne that I want to draw your attention to through Indiana, because that's also tracking northeast. Now again, it will weaken somewhat later, but they're headed in our general direction. There are the lightning strikes, and here all the areas outlined, tornado watches in place. So you can see pretty close to southwestern Ontario as well. And then where it's filled in, tornado warnings. And then now you see here from Environment Canada, a severe thunderstorm watch has been issued. And these areas where we have solid yellow, also severe thunderstorm watches. So we're at least now preparing for the potential that we have of the strong storms coming in next couple of hours, I would expect. So the area where it's a little more intense, where you see in orange, that's where the strongest threat for tornadoes are. And we're here in yellow, where I've got us in damaging winds, large hail, and isolated tornadoes not out of the question. So timing on this, I'm thinking getting closer to, you got another hour or so, 7 to 8 o'clock, as that line in Indiana makes it in our direction. A couple of hours by midnight, dogs will be not so scared anymore, and the rest of us can breathe a sigh of relief as well, and especially into tomorrow, because this is going to move on through, and then we get a pretty decent day, although windy conditions afterwards, and then into Wednesday night and Thursday. More showers are going to be coming in again with some wet weather. So just with what's coming tonight, it's so highly localized. You know that with thunderstorm activity, 1 to maybe 15 millimeters. The winds, those really pick up as we get the storms that'll come through, but then also again tomorrow through the afternoon, as we've got a cold front that will be incoming. We'll be on the mild side ahead of that, and then the temperatures will fall off. Overnight temperatures mid-teens. Your sunrise tomorrow is 6:17, and everything will be gone. But we'll be in that warm sector for a time, 26 degrees with the stiff winds, and then the cold air will filter in after that. So next few hours, just be alert for everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
Toronto's very own Drake has been in the news quite a bit lately for his high-profile feuds with other rappers. Today making headlines again for a shooting that happened outside his house. We have the details coming up. A new lawsuit alleges First Nations in the province are being denied equal access to justice. Indigenous chiefs are now suing the provincial and federal governments. Today, they took their fight to Queen's Park. Lorena Redekop has the story.
They wanted to make their presence known, heading from outside the Premier's office to the doors of the Legislative Chamber. Indigenous chiefs, on-reserve police chiefs, and the NDP's Saul Mamakwa.
When those people are coming here and they haven't committed a crime yet, but we know they're in our area and they're there for criminal activity. And I'm talking about drug trafficking, we have organized crime, human trafficking, and when you see the way human trafficking is tied into murder and missing Indigenous women and girls.
The Chiefs of Ontario has filed a lawsuit against the province and the federal government. They say that while First Nations can make their own laws, they're not being prosecuted. One police chief of 6 First Nations communities says trespassing is one example of something not being enforced. The Chiefs of Ontario have written to the Prime Minister and the Premier. In the letter to the Premier, they blame Ontario's new Police Act, passed last month, saying it explicitly excludes the enforcement of First Nations bylaws from the mandatory police functions.
It's a racist piece of legislation. If somebody could explain different to me, I'm willing to listen.
Here's what this Indigenous chief says she wants from the government.
I'm looking for the province of Ontario to step up to the plate, make sure that our women and children are protected and taken care of. Otherwise, you're creating a lawless society.
In question period, the Solicitor General was asked about these concerns.
As this matter is before the court, it would be inappropriate for me to comment any further.
The federal government says council are reviewing the statement of claim to determine next steps.
The ball is in their court right now, the Premier and the Prime Minister.
The chiefs say they'd prefer to sit down and resolve this outside court. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are investigating a shooting that happened outside of rapper Drake's house. Dale Manukduk has the latest.
Police say they were called to a shooting at Drake's Bridle Path home around 2 a.m. One neighbor says he heard 3 to 4 shots ring out.
I thought I was dreaming, and I didn't know if it was if I heard what I heard. And then maybe 5-10 minutes later, I heard the sirens. Yeah, so then that kind of made me think, okay, that was what I think it was.
Toronto police say the suspects fired from inside a vehicle and fled. One man was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries.
That person was working, apparently, as a security guard at the residence. He was standing outside of the gates in front of the residence when the shooting occurred. We have individuals who obviously performed the shooting who were seen in a vehicle. I do not have a description of the vehicle or the suspects at this time.
Toronto police do have video of the shooting happening. There are several security cameras outside of Drake's home. However,
we're dealing with video quality issues, correct? So we, as we have information and we're able to analyze video better, then we'll be able to provide more information.
Investigators say it's too early to speculate on the motive of the shooting. They would not confirm if Drake was in the house at the time, but say they are connected with his people. Drake has not made any public statements about the incident. Several private security guards were present throughout the day, keeping watch of the home.
People that are in the rapper world, they are the most highest threat level of any people in the entertainment industry.
Kent Moyer specializes in close protection of celebrities and was an expert witness for Suge Knight in relation to the murder of Tupac Shakur.
It's very loud and clear that he has lived at that property, and that's another concern that whenever a celebrity has a property, you want to discreetly remove all their private information and locations where they live from databases so that nobody would know that this is his property.
Hey, Kendrick just opened his mouth. Someone go hand him a Grammy right now.
Meanwhile, the shooting comes on the heels of a weeks-long feud between Drake and Compton, California-based rapper Kendrick Lamar.
Drop a 50 bag for the mob in a spot.
The two have been releasing songs aimed at each other in which they make very serious allegations, including domestic abuse, pedophilia, and dragging each other's families into the lyrics of their songs.
We could have left the kids out of this, don't blame me.
There's zero evidence to suggest the two situations are linked.
Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
Kendrick Lamar's most recent song, referred to as a diss track, was released on Saturday, and the cover art for the single was a Google Earth aerial view of Drake's house.
They not like us. They not like us.
Police were asked if it had anything to do with the shooting.
I am aware of what you're talking about, but it is so early in the investigation that we don't have a motive at this time. And so I cannot comment further on that.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
A key witness has taken the stand in the Donald Trump hush money trial. Adult film actor Stormy Daniels testified today about a sexual encounter she says she had with Trump in 2006. Daniels spoke about meeting him at a celebrity golf tournament and accepting an invitation to have dinner with him. She made efforts to go public with the encounter during Trump's 2016 presidential campaign that led to $130,000 in payments to keep the story quiet. Money was drawn from Trump's personal account and directed through his lawyer at the time. The lawyer is expected to testify later in the trial. The former U.S. president is facing 34 counts of falsifying business records to hide payments to Daniels. Troubled plane maker Boeing is the subject of yet another investigation by the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States. The FAA is looking into reports from the company that employees falsified inspection records for some 787 Dreamliners. Inspections may not have been completed to ensure the wings and the fuselage were fitted together properly. Last month, the whistleblower testified to U.S. lawmakers that Boeing had been taking shortcuts to get 787s produced as quickly as possible. The company has been under intense pressure since a door plug blew out of a Boeing 737 MAX during flight in January. Fashionistas worldwide were on high alert last night as celebrities gathered for the Met Gala in New York.
Anna, straight ahead. And turn this way. Whoa, look at this. I can get you at least. Kylie, that smile this way, Kylie. Yes. Right in the middle. Serena, straight ahead.
The dress code was inspired by the J.G. Ballard's story, The Garden of Time, contributing to a lot of flowers and other earthly elements in the outfits. The annual event is considered to be one of the biggest nights in fashion history. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.